Most of what happens in our lives is beyond our control. We can potentially have some influence, but predominantly it is just a given. And the one thing we have full control over, and that's the only thing we really do have full control over in our lives, is our attitude and our actions when it comes to our lives. So some of us have been dealt let's say, a bad deck of cards for life. Some have been dealt a better deck of cards for life. Um, but how do we approach what we've been given? That is really the determining factor of where your life is going to go. Now, the point I'm trying to clarify this time around is addictions. And addictions are things of choice. Why did I start off with saying somebody might be dealt a a bad hand at life and somebody might be dealt a better hand? I mean, you might be in a situation where you're an orphan or you had a difficult childhood. You didn't get, love, affection, security, caring from your parents. Um, and that leaves scars, obviously, and it will hinder your life to an extent. The point I'm making is that the further you go in life, the more it becomes your sole responsibility of what you do with that. So if for whatever reason you realize that you have a somewhat of an addictive mindset in your life, for example, you discover cigarettes, alcohol, drugs in your teenage years, and you notice that it really has a strong pull, and you have difficulties of overcoming that pull, and then you think, well, I'm just an addictive personality for whatever reason. That's not true. It is a choice. There's not a single drug addict, not a single alcoholic, not a single chain smoker, and not a single fat person, for example, in this world, who was held at gunpoint saying, you better open that bottle and drink it all up, or you better shoot that herring up your veins, or you better go to McDonald's and eat that, supersized, double Big Mac meal twice a day. That doesn't exist. It is a choice. So when you have a person who has addictions to whatever, whether it is a short fuse, that is a lack of emotional control, and that is completely under your control. If you say, oh, that's just my personality, I just have a short fuse, I explode at whatever 3 second notice when somebody, brings up something that triggers me. So you pretend as though somebody doing or saying something, you being reactive and getting triggered and saying or doing something that is probably not a good idea in the grand scheme of things, you relinquish the only thing, you relinquish control of the only thing you really have control over, which is your attitude towards what's happening around you. And basically, when you relinquish control of the only thing you have full control of in your life, what does that mean? You become a passenger in your life. You're no longer in the driver's seat. And when you relinquish control and you're in the passenger seat in your life, basically that's also leading to excusing whatever happens in your life, saying, I'm not responsible. I'm suffering of alcoholism. I'm suffering of an eating disorder. I'm suffering of whatever it might be. Sex addiction. Basically, you're saying, I'm no longer responsible. Somebody else is, or let's just diagnose that as an illness. So it's not really my choice. So you're pretending that somebody is making you eat or drink or whatever toxic behaviors you have, that somebody's making you do that at gunpoint. That's not true. You're lying to yourself. And when other people come and, pat you on the back saying, oh, that's all right, we understand that's an illness, they're basically telling you, great, you've given up control over your own life and your freedom of choice. So they just reinforce such bad behaviors. It's the same thing as when, let's say, there's an alcoholic and they're broke and they're sick, they have a hangover. You go there, you bring them food, you give them money, you help them get on their feet without requiring anything in return. That means your behavior is enabling their bad behavior. It's the same thing as you have with a obese person. They say, oh, I don't want to be eating this much, I want to lose weight. And they say, well, I actually don't want to change what I'm doing, so I'll go get surgery, let's say, to your stomach. So it's the same thing. It's like you're relinquishing the control over your life, and you're pretending as if that is not a choice. Now, people in general, we are somewhat slaves to our habits. If you have built up a habit for whatever reason it is, throughout days, weeks, months, and years, perhaps decades, those habits die hard. And people who say, oh, I have a habit, I cannot break a habit, that's also the same thing. You're saying, I'm a passenger in my life. I'm not on the driver's seat. You absolutely can break any single habit that you have. But if you say you can't and you say, I want to, but I can't, that means you are weak. Your mind is weak. There's no excuse. And when you have a weak mind, what do you think are the results in your life through the decades? When you are acting like a weak person, you're hardly going to get that much respect for yourself when you look in the mirror. You're not going to get respect from other people who realize on a very instinctual level that that person is not strong. Somebody else is in control of their life. So how do you respect a weak person? If whether it is alcohol or it is food or it is drugs or whether it's gambling, whatever it might be, if such an external factor is has the controlling influence in your life, then you're unpredictable to an extent, and you're not reliable because it's not you who's in control. And yeah, it's the same thing if you have a person who's in a relationship. Otherwise, they might be a great person, but they basically relinquish the power of their will and the direction of their life to their significant other. Imagine trying to get into a business with them, being business partners with them. Whenever there's an important meeting, traveling, etc., something has to be done. They're like, oh no, I'm gonna have to go on holidays, or I have to do this and that with my significant other, or I've got kids, this and that. Now, I'm not saying a significant other is not important, of course not, or kids are not important, of course they are. But when it's an important venture, you want to know that that person you're ending up into a business partnership is committed and they're in control of their lives. It's the same thing. If you have a really smart person, hardworking, experience, you want to say, let's start this business venture. But they have a bit of either a gambling problem or some problem with drugs or alcohol or something like that. How do you know if they're not going to go on a binge on a given day, let's say under pressure? That's a risk. You don't want to be dealing with those kinds of people. Now, the other part of it is some people, and this is predominantly for the women, there's a rather common belief with women that they can love somebody and make them heal from whatever addiction or bad behavior or whatever it might be. If you're a woman who thinks that your love is so special and you can love them to be whole again, 9 times out of 10 you're wrong. You're not that special. Your love is not that special. You cannot change anybody else. What you can change is who's looking at you in the mirror. Like, think about it logically. Let's say you have work and you have a boss, and you think your boss is a dick or a bitch. How easy do you think it is to change your boss and their attitude and behavior versus changing your job or your own attitude? So here again, we come to the point of, if you're not in control of your life, you might say, "Oh, this is my personality." But obviously personality changes through our lives. We always evolve. The only stable thing in life is change. So looking at yourself and changing your own behaviors, your own habits, that's the part that you can influence the easiest. But first you have to be acknowledging that you're in control of your life, right? To 2012, I had this friend who told me like I could lift pretty good at the gym, so I was kind of strong. But he said you're kind of a chubby in the midsection, and I was looking at him like, man, that's. I knew what he said was true, but I was like, what is he trying to pick a fight? Like, what's his problem? He said, do you want to change that? I was like, sure. Still thinking like, is that guy trying to pick a fight, or is he just like giving me the brutal truth? And he said he's gonna make me a training program and a nutrition program for 6 months for free. He said the only caveat is you need to follow that to the letter. But if you do that, I guarantee you're not going to be weaker, but you're going to shed a lot of fat and you're going to shed a lot of weight. But you're going to be technically a better lifter and you're going to be equally strong, if not stronger. And I thought that statement was so daring. I was like, all right, bro, let's go for it. But if you're wrong and it doesn't work, I might just, yeah. So I did. I followed it to the letter. Now, part of it was intermittent fasting, which means that you basically calorie restricting yourself for, let's say, 16, 17, 18 hours a day. So you eat all the calories within a window of 6 to 8 hours per day. So let's say skipping breakfast, and that's what I did, and that's what I've done ever since. Skipping breakfast in the beginning was hard. I was used to my whole life to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And in the morning, I was like, I'm hungry. And the sensation of hunger was pretty strong. But I said, okay, I'm going to commit to this. I'll see if it works. It took a few days, maybe a week or so, that the habit was craving for some food in the morning. But I said no. Was it easy? No. But it's a decision, it's a choice. And I made that choice and that commitment. So I was proactively changing my habits. And once you do that decision in your head and you start to live it in your life, your psychology and your body is going to fight it for a while, but you need to show that you're the boss and you're not the passenger. If I feel hungry, I'm not going to die if I don't eat. That's a choice. The same thing as if I have whatever addiction, like I crave for alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, whatever it might be, or gambling, or it's a choice. Do you give in to that or not? If you give in to it and you know that you're going to regret it down the line, you're weak. Get a grip of yourself. Especially if you think of having kids in the future and you're so weak that you're not even the boss in your own life. You're not on the driver's seat when it comes to your life choices. And some other external factor is controlling or has control over you. Without saying a word, your children are going to notice that. They're going to look at dad or mom and be like, yeah, they're nice, but they're weak. Like they've got some external thing controlling them that they cannot control. Is that the model of parenting as a father, as a mother, you want to give to your kids? Like, think about it. So, anyways, that's my point on addictions. Feel free to disagree. And just for reference, I'm not addicted to anything. Uh, Perhaps these rants is one thing that I might get addicted to. Ciao.